guys, ETJ writes here. Today I'm outside even though it's cold because it's a beautiful day and I just kind of got sick of being inside. So here we are outside talking about books. I'm really excited to share what kind of books I've been reading and some of my thoughts on them. First up is this book by Sara Douglas, The Wayfarer Redemption. I'm going to save my thoughts on this because I have a whole vlog series I'm doing on just this book. So keep your eyes peeled for that, but initial thoughts are, I like it a lot. There's a little bit of wordiness, but it's still a pretty good story so far. The next book I'm going to talk about is actually a collection of poems. I read a book by an author, Robert Haviland, who has passed on now, but he wrote about Britney Spears and about her conservatorship situation. It's a really, really sad situation, and makes sense that people still are afraid to talk about mental health in this country when there's these predatory situations that can exist and trap people. I know there's a Netflix special coming out that deals with the same subject, and hopefully more awareness will be spread around that as time goes on. But it's a really great set of poems centering around Britney Spears and some of her struggles during the X Factor years as she was under the conservatorship. It doesn't just detail her conservatorship battle struggles, but also other things going on in her life and focuses on different members of her family, like her brother and her mother. And there are some other poems thrown in there as well that really don't have much to do with Britney herself, but just Los Angeles in general. There's actually a poem that I really enjoyed called Los Angeles, a War Zone, so I would encourage you to check that out if poetry is your thing. And you'll learn something about conservatorship and guardianship abuse in the United States. If you want to know more about Britney Spears' corrupt and very controversial conservatorship case, please check out the deep dive docuseries on YouTube, as well as www.freebritney.army. And if you would like to know more about conservatorship abuse in general, please check out Billy Mint's documentary, The Guardians, available through Amazon. The next book I've been reading is The Immortal Words by Jeff Wheeler. It's the last of his Grave Kingdom trilogy series and is really interesting. I don't know if I connected with it as much as I did some of the other series that he's written, especially the Mirrorwind series, which I really loved. But he did a fantastic job of building this fantasy world set in an East Asian type of place. The heroine was really interesting because she spends a lot of time running away from wanting to be the hero at the beginning, and then by the end, spoilers, she's fully accepted her destiny and goes on to help save the world. It's actually really interesting the way it's written because it doesn't end, again, spoilers, on a super definitive ending. Yes, the bad guy has been taken care of, the main bad guy, but there's still evil lurking out there. It's not as wrapped up as his other series. And I don't know if I enjoy that or not. I mean, his other series always kind of had the promise of, yes, there will be struggles in the future, but they were a little more definitive. This one kind of, something could pop off again within a year's time, and we don't really get to see what that is. So if he ever returns to this world, he's definitely left himself a great avenue to explore. But that's the last of the books that I believe he has out so far. I mean, there are others like prequels and stuff like that, but maybe I'll get into those if I'm really looking for something to read. But I am going to try and stick a little bit more to indie published books, aside from my Wayfarer Redemption vlog, of course, as I move forward. My next book that I just finished reading actually is Dreamlander by Km Wyland. I found this book because of Km Wyland's website, where she offers a lot of really good writing advice. So if you are an aspiring writer, check her website out. Lots of good stuff to be found there. What I found really fun about the premise of Dreamlander was the fact that the hero lives between our world and a dream world where he has a counterpart. Basically, he's taken over somebody else's body in that world, and that person is just gone and erased and never comes back. So even though the family sees someone who looks like their son, he's not their son, and it's basically like their kid died. It's a little bit sad if you think about it. And the whole story has a little bit of an air of tragedy. There were definitely some really interesting points about the story that I enjoyed. Number one being the Dreamland premise, of course. I've read a few books with this premise over the years, most notably a manga which I can't remember the name of, but it had a kind of similar idea. This girl, schoolgirl, fell asleep in our world, and when she woke up, she was in a dream world. It's a really fun premise to explore, and one that I've personally been doing in my own writing. The fun thing is seeing how everybody's premises then take on a life of their own and become different from each other. So for example, Km Wyland's story is more firmly set in the fantasy genre, whereas I am trying to figure out how to make mine sci-fi, which it involves wormholes and quantum physics and things like that, and it's kind of breaking my brain a little bit, but we'll get there. Dreamlander was interesting to read. There were some things about the story that just didn't click for me. Number one, it's very long, and I love long stories, but it didn't feel like a lot happened. It really felt like it was the second book and the climax to a prequel novel that we never got to read. There's one thing to be said for dumping your audience into an already preconceived world, but there was just so much going on. I never felt like I really connected to any of the characters and cared about their struggles. I felt like I really needed just a single book concentrating on Alara and Arias and the other characters, really feeling them and their motivations and everything they've gone through, and then this book could be the sequel to it, describing everything that comes afterward, because then I would care about the characters, I would care why this is so important. But because the main character who we're seeing the story through doesn't really have a connection to this dream world, I didn't really have a connection either. I really wanted to know more about the other characters in the land of Lael. The tech that they used was pretty cool. They had these neat guns and sky cars and healing devices. Everything about the world building was really, really fun. There was all these intricacies, and you can tell that the author spent a lot of time thinking about it and building everything up really, really well. I could picture everything quite clearly in my mind, and I was never lost as to where the characters were at any point. I wish we had really spent more time in the real world in Chicago, because there were a lot of really cool and fun, interesting things happening that were never quite explained. And if we had gotten to see a little bit more of Chris's life, of how he seems to be slowly going insane while his friends are desperately trying to keep him safe from the people after him, I think that would have been really, really fun. Every time we were in Chicago, I loved it. I mean, not that I didn't love Lael too, but the Chicago storyline was so interesting, I wanted more of it. That's what I've been reading recently. I still have the Phoenix Flight book that I'm reading, and then of course, like I said, my Wayfarer Redemption. Hopefully I'll have a few more on my plate as I go along. Usually I end up getting to about 4 books at a time, sometimes 5, that can be a bit much, but usually 2. That way I can bounce back and forth between. If I'm starting to get a little bit bored with one story, I can get to the other. I don't know how long it's going to take me to get through this book, because it is very thick, over 400 pages, which is fine. I love long books, and I'm enjoying this one so far. But there might not be an update for me about this book until I'm about halfway through, and then I'll update the reading vlog, and you guys can check that out when it drops. But until next time, ETJ out.